John, you are a beautiful example of an entrepreneurship in the legal field. You started as a singer, turned engineer, lawyer. You are writing about AI, and you also have a garlic farm. With us, with the beginnings of your AI implementations, what were the first AI tools that your company implemented when you intersected first with the AI in the IP field?
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks, Gabriela. And so AI is an interesting thing because it's at the beginning, it's a bit contrary to really who we are as a firm. I started out, and our firm started out, really focused on Japanese practice because I worked in a Japanese company, and the Japanese clients traditionally value predictability, value having very defined workflows, and so this was how we designed the firm. It was very deterministic. And even as we expanded globally from the US to France and China and Japan and now the Middle East, we were very intent on making sure that we followed the exact same processes in each office. So no matter which office you go to, you're going to get the exact same level of service. Well, then along comes AI. And I've been a fan of AI for a long time, but then, how do you bring that into a firm, particularly a firm that has these very strict standard operating procedures? Well, so the early experiments with that were pretty narrow defined tools. For example, translations. Using AI tools for translation was one of the big early wins in our field, because in intellectual property we have to translate everything.
Yeah, an important topic actually, and a lot of fear for translators to lose their jobs in the beginning.
Yeah.
So how did you implement the translation tools?
Well, indeed, you still have to have a human in the loop. You have to have somebody that's bilingual reading that, and in our practice, certain translations have to be certified by a translator. So that means that somebody has to be willing to put their signature on it. So you still have to check, but it made things a lot easier. And also just quick translations, that we all do every day now.
Yes.
That you can just right click on something on the internet and see what it says. That's been super useful. We also implemented a tool fairly early on that I call it AI Lite, but it did have some AI parts to it that would allow us to test the kind of conformity, some formalities of some of the documents that we were drafting to make sure numbers aligned and figures were correct and things like this. Not creating substance, but checking the work of the human. And that turned out to be relatively useful. So those were some of the early experiments that we had with AI tools in the firm.
Very interesting, John. I'm actually asking myself, in an industry like legal, which is extremely risk adverse, AI is bringing maybe potential, but also lots of challenges. How did you mitigate the first challenges in implementing AI in the IP industry?
Well, we're still working on that. It's an ongoing process. And I would say, it's not even so much that lawyers are risk adverse. It's that we want to know what risks we're taking. We want them to be well defined.
Of course.
And that's part of the problem of generative AI, is that you don't know when it's going to do something weird. And just as an example of that, a few weeks ago, I was asked to give a presentation at the so-called IP5 heads meeting, which is the meeting of the heads of the European, US, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean patent offices. And my presentation topic was what we're talking about today: implementation of AI in law firms, specifically IP law firms. When I do a presentation, a PowerPoint, I write every word myself. But then I have an agentic enabled process that I put that through to make pretty slides, because I'm a terrible artist. Right? But I make sure it doesn't change any of the words. Because I want to be in complete control of those words. I don't really care too much what it looks like. I'll let
So
the AI add that, right?
You work on the prompting very well to say no words will be changed.
Exactly.
And nevertheless,
So one of the diagrams that AI decided to put on one of my slides was of the 5 patent offices with their flags. But for some reason that we will never know, it used the correct flag for every country except for Korea. And for Korea, it substituted the flag of the UAE. I don't know why. And I looked, I checked, and I didn't see it. And so I submitted that presentation with that error, which was a little embarrassing. Fortunately, we caught it before my presentation. But
and
I think that's
exactly on the topic of so many sanctions that we see today for law firms in the judicial system today, and the topic of big companies including hallucinations in their report. This is one hallucination that you've caught, in your day-to-day activity. But you see this as one of the main challenges in AI today.
Absolutely, and it was ironic because the subject matter was precisely this, but the point I think is really important because everyone talks about human in the loop.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's okay as long as you have a human in the loop. The problem is, even with a human in the loop, the types of errors, the hallucinations that AI make are very hard to detect. They look correct. So even in this case where I only let the AI do a very narrow scope of stuff and I looked at it carefully, I didn't see it. And that's the implementation challenge. That's what we as lawyers are worried about. How are we going to be able to make sure that we don't miss that, even when there's a human looking at it?
And that's an excellent point, John, here, because we're discussing about human in the loop, we're discussing about human on the loop, and now in the legal field we will have even a deeper scrutiny into how lawyers use AI. And I'm going to use this maybe as a bridge to jump on the side of authorities. What is your take on how authorities are changing the patent application process, for example? Do you believe that the authorities will fight fire with fire, or are they more into rejecting AI for time being?
So the patent offices, and let's talk about the IP5,
yes.
Because there's 85% maybe of all the patents and IP in the world goes through those main offices. They are all using AI. They are all embracing AI.
That's very interesting.
And in different levels. So far, again, the emphasis is human in the loop, right? There's going to be a patent examiner or a trademark examiner making that final decision. But they are all in various ways at various speeds, but moving full speed ahead toward implementing AI. So for example, in the patent area, things where you're already seeing AI being used in the patent offices, classification. When you file a patent application, it gets classified based upon its technical attributes. There used to be humans that would read it and decide which classification it went into. Now that's done by AI. Certainly the translations are done by AI. Now we have pre-examination done by AI. We have summaries done by AI to help the examiners understand the applications more quickly. We do not yet have AI examination as such, but we're going to see that. So it's moving in that direction. At the same time, on the applicant side, we're seeing individuals, particularly individuals, but also firms move toward using AI more and more and generating what they file with the offices. So at some point, maybe we end up with 2 computers talking to each other, right?
Maybe. In the meantime, so until we reach that point, because we have hallucinations. We have today people not fully understanding how to use AI. They do not understand what are the tools that are available to them, what are the workflows that they can implement, whether we're speaking about a law firm or a general counsel in a company or a patent office. I still believe there is a lot of work to be done in the education around AI. And speaking about that, maybe another topic that I know is very close to your heart, it's policies, and you've helped establish actually a global standard on 3 categories of impact in AI and IP. Would you like to tell us more about this?
Yeah, thank you. I have worked a lot in the area and continue to work on the policy of how we deal with AI in the IP world, and where, and if so, how it should change the law. And one of the issues that we encounter when we're talking about this subject is there's a conflation of concepts that occurs. So that caused us to create this concept of 3 categories of AI related inventions. And the first category is the core AI, so the stuff that makes AI work. That could be the hardware, the algorithm, whatever it is, the core stuff.
Yes, building the system.
Yeah, and then the second category is that core AI taken and put to some particular use, so an application of AI. So there's most of the inventiveness that's going on right now is in that second category.
Yes.
You know, there's some big companies making the core stuff. Most people are taking that off the shelf, training it, and applying it to a particular use case. So that's where we see most of the
wrappers.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you see most of the activity. And then the third category is when you use AI to invent something, where AI is a tool, but what you want to protect is the output. An example would be if you're using AI to identify new compounds that have some, maybe it's a new drug that has efficacy on some disease. So when we look at the AI innovation through the lens of those 3 categories, it's much easier than to talk about the policy implications of each.
That's very interesting. Indeed, we see a lot of innovation in medtech, the use of AI. We can see it in the legal tech field now, from contract management up to board and IP innovation. So I believe in each industry we do have a strong innovation around AI. One young lawyer who wants to walk into your shoes today with all the challenges and also all the potential that exists in law and IP and AI, what would be your recommendation for this junior lawyer?
Well, I would have 3. Because I think it's a challenging environment for young lawyers coming into this field. And you know, I was wonderfully lucky when I started out to work with a firm with these 2 people in particular who took the time to mentor me. And I've always appreciated that and have tried to return that. So in our firm, we have a culture of aggressively mentoring. You know, we actually run a training program and put people through. We make sure that they understand what they're doing. So I think for any new person in the field, there's 3 primary things. The first is learn how to use the AI tools, because they are the future. So learn how to use them, play with them. Do what I do, you know, on the weekend when I get home after dinner, I'm building stuff, right? Because it's fun.
Recipe for dinner.
Yeah, exactly. But learn how to use those tools because you need them, right?
Yes.
Second, learn the substance. Don't rely on AI. You need to know the substance. AI is not going to answer things for you, and you need to be able to know whether what you're getting back from AI is the truth or not. You still need to learn the substance, and there's no shortcut for that, right? And so they need to spend the time. The third, which is a combined problem of AI plus remote work, which is so prevalent today, take every opportunity to spend time, virtually or in person, with experienced people. You know, we don't have the discussions around the water cooler so much like we used to, but most businesses will have, you know, virtual happy hours or any opportunity where somebody who's experienced will sit down and talk to you and mentor you. Take advantage of that. And so those would be my 3 primary recommendations for a young person.
Thank you very much for this exchange. It was very rich in insights. Thank you.